Morning, everybody. Welcome to Day 2, Digital Summit Stage 2. And we're all here today because we want to learn a little more about email marketing. We want to unleash the hidden power, and we want to improve results and avoid mistakes. My name is Josef Silva. I'm the founder of Fusion Inbound Marketing. We're a Kansas City-based digital marketing company. We're a full-service agency offering SEO, local search, email marketing, WordPress. And I'm excited to be in a room with a bunch of other Kansas City-based marketers. Once a month, there's a bunch of us that get together for just a happy hour, SEO Biz, the first Monday of every month. So follow us on Twitter. And the first half a dozen of you to follow me on Twitter and join us at SEO Biz, your first drink's on me. So you might be wondering why I'm standing on stage 90 seconds into a presentation about email, and I've said SEO 6 or 7 times. My introduction to email was a little bit bumpy. I've been working in the SEO space since 2005, 2006, and I moved to Kansas City about 8 years ago, and I was hired as an SEO strategist at a IT company, local IT company in Miriam. And my boss at the time was a visionary, a very, very intelligent woman who had been VP marketing for Global Brands. She taught me some lessons that really helped shape my career today. And she got her hands on the David Rabb Marketing Automation Report. And this is an annual study that's written which helps businesses of various sizes determine which email marketing and which automation platform is a best fit for their business. And slowly but surely, my deliverables started shifting. My SEO goals started getting pushed, and my email projects started getting more and more important. And we sat down in one of our ones, and I very candidly told her that if I would have known this was going to be an email marketing job, I would never have applied for the position. I was not interested in email. I was an SEO to my core, and yet here I was implementing email for this IT company. I ended up moving on from that company, and I worked in the most corporate environment I've ever worked in. And of a team of 3,000 people globally, I was the digital guy. So when they wanted to implement email, they went to the SEO guy and said, hey, we want to do email automation. So there, we went through a similar process. We evaluated platforms. It was a big corporate company, so they didn't realize they were paying for 3 different email marketing platforms already. We chose which one to use, and we implemented email across that company. And then I moved on to a DC-based wine company. Very fun industry. We were selling wine. And similarly, as VP marketing, I saw that when we sent emails, we sold wine, we printed money, and that's where we focused our energy. So all of us have probably sat in a room at some point in our career and quoted one of these stats. I'm not going to bother reading them out because we know that email works. That's why we're in this room. There's return on investment. It's effective. And we've probably had to convince someone using this data at some point. So if email is so effective, if email is working, why does so much of it suck? Why is it spammy? Why is it junk? Why do we get these emails full of mistakes or long form or lack of links? Ultimately, email is the digital marketing channel that's kind of weathered it all. It's the champion in some respects of email marketing. Social media platforms have come and gone. Algorithms have changed, but email's kind of survived Gmail's new tabs. It survived things like GDPR. We're understanding how to use it, and it works. So why is it we have so many challenges? When it comes to email, you need a strategy, but you can't just set it and forget it. This has to grow. You have to nurture your email strategy. You can't just think, oh, it's Tuesday, so we're going to send an email because we haven't done one since Tuesday. You need to be strategic about what goes in your emails and when you're sending them. So I want to talk about 3 areas that we can improve and nurture our email program. The first is data, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit to think about the data that you're looking at. The second is your content. How can we improve your content so people are engaging with more of it? And finally, growth. If email is this effective and your data is good and your content is good and you're reaching people and it's converting, make sure you're growing your email list as well, because otherwise it's probably going to be shrinking and you're not having as much of an impact as you could. So the first of these topics is data. How many of you are tracking your open rates? Okay, that's good. List size, your click-throughs. Data is important to email. That's why we have so many hands up in the email. But I want to challenge you to worry less about your open rate. I don't really care how many people open your email. Back when I was VP marketing at the wine company, I still had my SEO hat on. That was like where I came in. I spent most of my day in Google Analytics and came up with this statistic. I know it's tiny, you can't see it, but this number is 181% increase in 6 months of conversions from email marketing. Well, that's a nice number, but what does that really mean? This meant that in the 6 months that we focused on our email program and started segmenting and started automating, we generated an additional $250,000 of revenue just by improving what we were doing already. And the reason that we shifted focus away from SEO, away from social, away from paid, is because what we saw here. We looked at all the data. And email was the channel that I had the best conversion rates from, where I could control where it was coming from. So this was something that we knew that if we sent the emails, we got the conversions. And we got results that we like. I don't know if you can see this with the lighting, but we had an annual sale campaign and open rate of 22%, click rate of 28%, 9% conversions. We were all very happy. That generated 36 grand in sales in an afternoon. Well, that made my job worthwhile. But then we dove deeper, and we created a segment of people looking at the data of people who had responded to the previous year's annual sale launch. This was a much smaller segment, 10% of the full list. And here we got a 62% open rate. It's astounding. We got a 25% conversion rate, and this segment of engaged customers who had purchased before, and we took the time to segment properly, well, we generated the same 33 grand in sales from a significantly smaller segment, because we gave people something they want. You like wine, we sell wine, here's more wine, everyone's happy. So we started segmenting more. And these line items that I highlighted are where we sent to smaller lists but had better results than the full campaign. I think a lot of people who work in email are hurrying, they're hustling. They're like, oh, it's Wednesday, we got to get the approval, the VP didn't sign off, and like you just kind of are trying to get the email out. And segmentation for some is this ideal. But if you start knowing your data, it becomes what you have to be doing. And the data you need to monitor to do something like this is at your fingertips. If you're using an email service provider already, you have most of these at your fingertips, at least the top 6 of them. If you're not in e-commerce and you want to put numbers to your average revenue, your average order value, then that's great, and you fill that in here as well. That might not come out of the same analytics program, but you should have access to this. So you put in your numbers, and you have your percentages, and that all looks good, and we have all the nice feelings about our percentages, but percentages don't always, you need the numbers, you don't just need the percentages. So fill this out, and keep this data. Because once you keep this data, you can start playing with things. And this is easy to do in a Google Sheet. This isn't some fancy third-party tool. This is just a Google Sheet. Once you have the data and you have a cadence and you understand how your segments respond to your campaigns, you start playing with the numbers. What happens if we increase our open rate 4%? Well, that changes this number by $1,500. So if you need to justify expanding your team or additional software or additional resources, something as simple as this Google Sheet might be your answer to getting that budget approved. Now, data's all good and well, but essentially, we need to think about how we can move those data points. And when you're creating an email campaign, your content at every level is how you move those data points. So we segue away from our data into our content. But by content, I don't just mean written word. I don't mean your writing team. I mean all of these things on the screen. Your from name can have an impact. The subject line has an impact. How you're using your images, and obviously the copy and content in your email are very impactful too. So how many of you feel that a familiar from name is going to get a better response? Excellent. We believe that. We see that when you use a person's name versus a brand name, our open rates generally go up. There was an interesting study from Image that looked at the 2018 election campaign emails. And they saw that when they sent an email from the candidate's name, their open rates were about 2% lower. That's interesting. That's not what we all just raised our hand and thought. When they sent it from a member of the campaign staff team, their open rates were higher. Well, if you're looking at that data point alone, you're confused. You're like, well, that's not what we've all learned. That's not what we've all told our bosses. But then we do something very interesting. We're looking at one data point. We're looking at open rate. You look at the conversion rate, which was what matters. The click-to conversion, the click-to donation, was a 15% or 14.6% higher statistic. I mean, you can see that in the graph. You can see how that looks different. But when you're looking at election campaigns and donations, 14% increase in your conversion rate, that's real money. Just a total segue that I don't want to go down too far, but if you're interested in how optimizing emails and campaigns has evolved over time. For the Obama campaign, there was a guy called, I believe his name was Kyle Rhodes. He went on to work for Optimizely, but he was head of A/B testing for the Obama campaign. There is fascinating reading about the placement of images or the use of color and things that could nudge the needle a couple of percentage points, but would translate into real money for candidates. So if your email list is large enough, an increase of 2% is significant. Just like your from name, your subject line is kind of your introduction. You're knocking at the door and you're saying, hey, open me. Let's hang out. You want to stand out because there are 269 billion emails sent every day. That's a huge number. Like, what does that really mean? Like, you throw out numbers like 269 billion, none of us can really relate. That translates to about 90 emails per person per day. So if you've ever sat in your office trying to get out for lunch, but you feel like you're drowning under email, it's because people like you are sending you emails. But we need to stand out. We don't want to be one of 269 billion. So how do you get your emails opened? Now, this is something I would write down, or I would tweet, or I would remember. But if your subject line has 1, 2, or all of these, you're going to see increases in your open rates. A little bit of curiosity. Tease the audience. Sense of urgency works very well. Social proof, so talking about how many other people took this offer, or how justified this is based on the audience. Or tell a story in the subject line. When you do this, and again, I don't know if you can see this with the lighting, but these are some of the results we have. Open rates, one of my clients. We have 55, 52, 46% open rates. For your eyes only. Well, that's curious. What is that? Well, one of my favorites here is 2 homes just listed. I think they'll sell this weekend. Well, if you are looking to buy a new home and you trust your real estate agent, there's nothing more urgent than, hey, this might have sold by the time you got around to checking your email. And this not only builds trust and authority with these subject lines, but people are curious. The open rates we see with this client, I haven't seen with many other campaigns I've run. So here are those 4 things again and how we do it. Curiosity, urgency, social proof, tell a story. Those are nice buzzwords, but how can you really do it? I don't have enough time in this presentation to go into that. But remember that corporate job I told you about in 2013 when I wasn't doing SEO anymore? I had a lot of time to attend webinars and go to conferences. And one thing that stuck in my mind 6, 7 years later is the process that Upworthy would use for writing their headlines for articles. So if everyone remembers Upworthy, they rose to popularity along with sort of BuzzFeed. They had a lot of very interesting, sometimes clickbaity articles that engaged. These things went viral, and suddenly you're reading articles about all sorts of things that weren't relevant to your life. But how did they do that? They had a process of writing 25 headlines for every article they published. And you're probably thinking, no way, I'm not doing that. They have this process where the first third of those, they were kind of crappy. You're getting your brain started. Second third of those, again, you get your creative juices going. But they found that once they got into that third of their list of subject lines and headlines, that's when the magic happened. And that's when they had things that they can test. Now, if you're thinking there's no way I'm going to sit and write 25 email subject lines, I want to remind you that if you want to get an extra $250,000 in revenue or 55% open rates, then it might be worth your time. Moving on to content, and the use of images is really important. I'm sure we've all opened an email, had a reaction where you feel like your eyes are bleeding or there was no design involved and you just wish you hadn't seen it. Think about your images. I'm a little critical of design. I used to work in graphic design and I dabbled with photography for a few years. But I can't impress enough of how important it is to actually get high quality images. So I've got 2 examples here of companies that I've worked with at various points. The first is mysupermarket.co.uk. This was a UK-based comparison grocery website. So things like Amazon Prime Now, where you can get your Whole Foods delivered in Kansas City. We've had that, 6 months in Kansas City? It's changed my life. I love it. But my grandmother's been doing online grocery shopping in England for 15 years. When My Supermarket opened, they wanted to not only allow people to do your groceries online, but they took the data from all 4 of the main grocery stores, and you could do your grocery shopping, and they would tell you, hey, it's cheaper if you switch to that store. Or they rolled out a feature that was, hey, it's healthier if you switch to that store. But they launched Like it was kind of a covert launch, came to market, so they didn't want to crawl the websites. They didn't want to go and get the images or like do that through spiders and robots. This was an Israeli-based startup that had a photographer in London going grocery shopping every single week and buying everything you can buy in England to take photos of it. And then those hard drives, because bandwidth and internet speed wasn't what it was now, were then flown from London to Tel Aviv once a week so we could then build the data. That's how important it was to get the high-quality images. Similarly with the wine company, we didn't want to rely on the wineries. We didn't want to rely on the distributors for our images. So we had a warehouse, and we had camera and setup. You can get a decent light box for 30 bucks. So if you have a product you can take images of, don't rely on someone else's. Invest the time in getting the best images that you can. But don't just get the best images you can. Do things like this. I'm guessing most of your attention is drawn to this side of the screen right now, because it's moving. So not only do you have the ability to put more in the same amount of real estate, but if your eye is moving in the direction, your mouse is probably moving in the direction, and your clicks are probably going to go up. So if you're in something that's visual or lifestyle related, this is a great thing you can add to your campaign. And we started doing this for clients, and we started getting click-through rates of 15%, 14%, 12%, consistently, because we have the right audience and the right data, and it moves. You get your attention. But it's not just pretty, it's not just visual, it's useful. If you're selling a home, you can get more images in there. You don't just put a picture of the house, you don't create this email that's pixels and pixels and pixels long that no one finishes. You get all the information in one place. If you don't know how to create an animated GIF, please tweet me. I'll tell you, it's super easy. I just didn't put it in the deck, but happy to show anyone how to do this. It's super simple. Dell tried this. Dell tried this in a campaign, and the result was they had a 103% increase in revenue from that campaign. It's more than double, just by spending a little bit of time on animated GIFs, or GIFs, depending where you fall with that. Finally, content. The key of content is your copywriting, and we haven't touched on it yet at all. You want to be customer-centric with your copy. You want to be authentic. So often I get emails, and I'm like, this is just, you're screaming at me about your brand. I don't care about the award you won. I don't care about the sale you're doing. It's all about the value you're promoting to yourself. Tell me how you are being customer-centric. You also want to test your content, and you want to think about your link density, and we'll touch on those as well. This is an email I actually received. This was from a software company that provided an integration between Asana and Trello and other project management platforms. When I opened my agency a couple of years ago, I was doing a bunch of white labeling, and one of my biggest clients, they used Trello, I used Asana, and it was a mess. And this was a software platform I tried out. The trial ended, I didn't sign up, but I got this. And I don't know if you can read it, but it basically says, we get how it goes. Your trial ended and you didn't make a decision. So we enforce this time limit on you, but it's okay. If you have questions about the tool, reach out, or maybe we don't solve the problem, but let us know. I got this email and I rethought it. I ended up using the software for about 9 months. It was personable. I could relate to it, and it was authentic. It was all about the customer. It was all about how they could serve me. I'm a big fan of automation, and we're going to talk about abandoned cart automations in a few minutes. But this is copy that I've used in all sorts of industries, edited it for the right message. In this instance, the client was selling child's clothing, baby grow. It was essentially onesies that kids could wear if they needed feeding tubes or had any sort of special medical needs, so you had easy access to the feeding tubes and things like that. So abandoned carts, we just sent them an email saying, hey, we know how it goes. You were shopping and the baby cried, or the oven beeped. You got distracted. It's always rush, rush, rush with kids around, so we've saved your cart for you. We did this for you. And big shiny red button, check out here, call to action. And then finally, if we can help you, if this wasn't the reason you didn't check out, just reply to this email. But please promise me one thing. If you're asking people to reply to the email, you don't want it to be noreply@yourbrand.com. You don't want it to be the VP Marketing's personal inbox. Have that be whatever your support ticket system is. Have it be the right person, because you're saying, hi, we want to help you. Connect them to the right person. You also want to test as much as you can. We talk about this in email a lot. We have a lot of data points. This is an email campaign where we tested same copy, different colors, different placements of links. The green example had a 38% opens, 8.4% clicks. That was double the clicks we had on the blue version. When you're testing, don't make the mistake of over-testing. If you're testing your from name and your subject line and your color and your links and something works, you have no idea what just worked. So test one thing at a time. Test your subject lines. It's easy. And then don't just celebrate when you get your increase in rates. Make sure you're documenting that. Keep your Google Sheets. So that way when you test something that doesn't go right or doesn't go as planned, you know what you can fall back on. You know where you go back to. The other thing that I see a lot in emails, and this could be my SEO hat a little bit, but a lack of links in your emails. So let's say you have an event, and you're inviting people to the event, and you have the event name, the date, the location. You can link all of those times. You don't just have to have one link at the top. We live in an age where people don't read, they skim. We have no attention spans, and people might not see the link you intend them to see. I read a study years ago, I don't remember who it was by, so I can't correctly source them, but we see a positive correlation between links in your email and clicks. Well, that makes sense. More opportunities to click, that's not science. But then once you hit 20 links in your email, it kind of started to skyrocket. And you might be thinking, well, how the hell am I going to get 20 links into one email? I've started putting things like very simple navigation bars at the top of email campaigns. Home, products, contact us, blog. So if the audience isn't necessarily engaged with the content of that email, but maybe they want to buy, there's a link to the store. Maybe you're not selling something, but you offer a consultation, and people can give you a call or book a time. Don't be scared to link to the same blog post or the same article within different parts of the email campaign. And once you start doing that, or include some links to your social media profiles, or feature a recent Instagram post, or something that you're seeking engagement on that's relevant, then hitting 20 isn't that difficult. And then once you have good content and good copy and good visuals, you can get really good automation. I get pretty angry when I get bad automation, because I kind of analyze it and I see what can be done better. But good content fuels really effective automation. So I mentioned abandoned carts before. It's kind of one of my favorite automations that we can put in place. When done effectively, it works very well. The script I shared before on that email works pretty effectively. If you Google why people are abandoning their cart, you're going to get 8.5 million different articles. Very interestingly, 2-3 years ago when I researched this, there were about 400,000 articles, so everyone has an opinion on why people are abandoning their carts. And there are some good reasons. Shipping costs are too high. Maybe you don't take American Express. Maybe it's a birthday gift and it won't arrive on time. This is all good and well, but don't assume any of these are the answer. And the reason I say this, sometimes people just forget. Sometimes people just don't get around to checking out, and it's not that you don't accept the payment or it won't arrive. The phone rang, they got a text. So I tested this theory that sometimes people are forgetful, and we sent a 2-part automation out to customers who had abandoned their cart. So in about 30 days, this went out to about 3,000 people, got an open rate of 62%, conversion rate of 25%. Okay, that's 33 grand that was left on the table. That's a nice amount of money. What we didn't put in this email was a coupon. There was no incentive in this email at all to check out or complete a purchase. We were just going on the premise that people were forgetful. 2 days or a day later, we sent out a second email with a coupon. So sometimes you have people who are waiting for those coupons, or sometimes people genuinely need that incentive. Well, that converted similar rates as well, $28,000 of revenue from half the number of opens. So we catered to both those audiences. But I do believe, and test this with your audience, test this with your company, but don't assume that you need to incentivize people to purchase when you're sending your abandoned carts. Because 5% of 33 grand, well, that's a chunk of money that we didn't have to give for free. Finally, another automation that I really enjoy is what I call a lapsed purchase sprint. So if there's a regular cadence when people are shopping with your brand, if you know, or converting or booking your services, you probably know what that is. Let's say it's once every 60 days. Well, what if you have an automation set up about 45 days after their last purchase to say, hey, welcome back, how's it going? We miss you. Think about anything that you purchase regularly. any sort of subscription-based model, or it could be a subscription-based model, but you don't have that in place. So with the wine business, there was a cadence of every 60 days our top customers were ordering. So we sent them some sort of reminder after 45 days. Well, that translated into 2 more, when this converted, it was 2 more orders per year per customer. These aren't new customers that you're going out to sell. You're just reminding them that they're almost out of whatever it is that they already like. They already want it. So test things like that as well. Because when you do, you make more money for your brand. So we've talked about cont data. I want to challenge you to look at your data and understand if you're looking at the right thing. If you're looking at just one metric, you're not looking at one thing. You're not looking at the right thing. We talked about content and how we can improve it with visuals. And now we're going to move on to talking about growth. Because if you have all these other things right and you're reaching your existing audience, why not go ahead and apply this to your full audience? Sorry, to a potential new audience. We hear a lot of talk and chatter about social media, using social media to grow your lists. You can do this organically. You can offer incentives. A lot of email service providers are now very simply letting you create lookalike audiences within their platform. I know MailChimp rolled out a bunch of new features today as well, pushing them towards more of a CRM model. I haven't looked at that yet. But there's all these sorts of integrations. But don't just take your email list and say, hey, well, let's get a lookalike list of these 30,000 people. Segment that first. Build your lookalike campaign, build your social campaigns based on the highest converting audience. You have that data at your fingertips, so use it properly. Your website is a great place to be collecting email addresses, but I don't mean putting pop-ups up. When was the last time you were reading an article and got interrupted by a pop-up and you're like, yes, that is what I want? No one likes a pop-up. Google doesn't like a pop-up. It's bad for organic search. Please don't use them. But incentivize things in your website. If you have content on your website that converts very well or people engage with highly, well then add a call to action in there. Create checklists or PDFs or downloads, valuable content from your most popular blog content. Don't be afraid of giving away your secret sauce or too much information, because people are going to either leave you because they're not happy already with the business, or they're going to understand the value of what you bring. So don't be afraid of your competitors or your secret sauce. Another interesting place that I've seen success with emails, and I'm always challenged to share this, because if you have this many broken pages on your site, it's another problem. But if you can turn your 404 page into an email generating sign-up page, that's great. I've worked with a bunch of companies who have e-commerce sites and they're using Magento, and there's just, with stock changes and things, products going out of stock, it ends up with a bunch of broken pages. But these are trafficked. So instead of just saying, oops, I'm sorry, 404, bye, turn it into a contact form. So for the customer, they feel heard. You got a special request. They want red wine and you're out of it. But for the business, you have 2 great opportunities here. First, a checkbox where they can sign up. Hey, yes, I want your emails. I like this. But B, you can capture data on either what's broken that needs fixing, or B, what you need to, what products that you no longer sell that you could be adding to your inventory. When we did this at the wine company, embarrassingly, we saw a 3 times increase in our emails. I say embarrassingly because we shouldn't have had that many broken pages anyway. But this is a way to turn something that is broken into something that can serve you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't get the IT resources to fix the broken things, but in the interim, use them to your advantage. And then in real life, we think about the online world as sort of this ecosystem. There's a lot of talk about bringing real life online and putting personality online, but let's do it the other way too. Let's say you sell cheese. Well, what if you partnered with like an organic meat company and did a promotion together? What if you sell bed linens and you want to partner with a pillow company? Do things in real life, create partnerships. We all like connecting with people, we all like getting together. Well, why not do that with your brands with synergy audiences? Don't be afraid to partner up and run a campaign and run a promotion and do something that makes sense to both your audience and to each other's brands. If you do this correctly, if you have the opt-in permissions, if you're following GDPR and you're following CAN-SPAM, this can be a really effective way to tap into a synergy audience. And if you're shipping products, include a surprise. It could be a little free gift. It could be a postcard with a short code to say, hey, thank you for your first order. If you want to know more, send us a list. We all like surprises. Maybe not dogs we don't want, but in general, if you get a gift that you weren't expecting, you're going to be, it's going to create sort of good feelings with that brand. And finally, we have about a minute left, so I'm going to do this quickly, but planning. Planning is key. A few other sessions we've talked about not creating content for the, don't write 12 case studies because there are 12 months in the year. Write the content that makes sense. Plan out your emails. And if your company is reliant on email for conversions or revenue, always have a backup email that's pre-approved. Make sure that's ready to go. You don't have to seek approval at the last minute. Maybe something was out of inventory or someone's schedule changed. Have that plan be ready to go when it's already approved. And communicate with your team. We have Slack, we have WhatsApp and texting and all these things that interrupt our day, 269 billion emails a day. Use some of them to talk to your team. Walk downstairs to the warehouse and see what they need to shift. See what the business goals are. Don't work in a silo within your business, and make sure that as a team, you're communicating effectively. Speak with your customer service teams as well. If any of you have a client-facing group, find out what questions they're answering over and over again, and you can use that both in your email planning, you can use it in your content creation planning, but overall, it's just good for business because everyone knows what's going on. If you have any questions at all, I would love to talk email all day. I have 9 seconds left, but please tweet me, ysilver, and if you are Kansas City based, join us on the first Monday of every month for some beer and marketing talk. Thank you.